to introduce you to my friend and yours, Ida. You remember Ida, right? Right? Yeah. She's 10 years old. She's in your life, very significant person in your life, and you care for her deeply. And my question for you is, what are your hopes and dreams for this young woman? What do you want for her to become? And if there were only two paths, which of these options would you pick? Option one, she's highly successful, making a lot of money, but has no friends or family. So you call her occasionally, you check in on her, and she's killing it, she's raking it in, but she's sad. She doesn't have connections. This is Ida now, she's 37. AI. Or you call Ida and she's moved to a place where there's a little bit of a struggle. The job market's tough. She can't really, she's living from paycheck to paycheck, but when you speak to her, she tells you stories, not of her favorite movies and shows and apps and games, but of her favorite people. She's connected with her neighbors. She's connected with the church. She's connected with coworkers, and she has relationships. What would you want for her if this is a person that you really love and care about? And so when we think about those things, and if you can imagine if that's a real scenario, and maybe we do live here in Georgia, and she's moved out to like the West Coast someplace, and so you're talking to her, and she's just moved out there, so she doesn't have those connections, and she's a little worried, a little nervous about some of the holidays that are coming up, and then you get a phone call from her a couple days later. She said, I went to church and I wasn't too sure, but then somebody invited me over to their house for dinner, and I went, and it was great. Those are the things. If we had a person that we loved and they went far away to a place where they didn't have any connections, that would be our hope and prayer for them, right? That some stranger, some person that doesn't know them would have the heart, would have the motivation and the desire and the will and the means to say, why don't you come in? Can we take you out? Can you come to our house? Can we help you out? Can you be a part of this? And in my very early days here at Grace Chapel, I heard a story of a family that had done this, and specifically a woman named Jane Latson. And that was, sadly, unfortunately, the story I heard at her memorial service. And it was a story of her family opening their doors during the holidays and bringing a bunch of people in. People that weren't a part of their natural family, but welcoming them into their family and making them feel at home. So today we've got Steve Gibson, who is Jane's son, if you can come on up here, and we're gonna talk a little bit about what that was like, living in a home that had open doors and welcomed strangers in. So thanks, Steve.
It's good to be here. Good morning.
So can you tell us about that? Just some of your earlier memories of growing up and living in a house that welcomed strangers in.
So on the earlier side, one of my earliest memories was actually way back in elementary school. Dating myself, this was after the fall of Saigon, so back in the 70s, and there was a call to our local congregation in San Antonio at the time for people willing to, I think, temporarily house some families that were needing to relocate from Vietnam. And so courageous Jane, said, it was one of those things that was not forced upon her, but it was just so obvious, the overwhelming need, that she said, okay. So we had a family move in with us, and these are not their Vietnamese names, but I remember their American names, Tom and Susie, and they had Tung, Tom, Tuyen, and Tuan for sons. And then it ended up being almost, I think, the better part of a year that they actually lived with us, like in just a couple of rooms, and then had Betsy while they were living with us in San Antonio. So I thought it was the coolest thing as a little guy. I had 4 extra brothers. One was older, and I thought he was the coolest thing. And we got to go to school together, and wonderful memories and play together. It was great.
Awesome. That's awesome. I love how you were like, I thought it was the coolest thing, because that can be. So when we think of those things, and if you think about inviting a family of 6, then 7, to live with you, that can feel daunting. So to hear your perspective and say that, it was so neat. So I'd heard these stories about holidays. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So it gets a little big at times, and there's a ebb and flow. But we had this, I guess. The definition of family that she had was wider than your typical American, okay? Typical American, core biological, that's family. I think that she had expanded because of life experience greater than that. She was an only child, and so she grew up with cousins, and so that were like her siblings. I think that helped. But then, all the time growing up, especially Thanksgiving, if anybody didn't have a place to go, we were on task to be aware of that, and to invite those people. And so friends from the neighborhood, co-workers, and that became just a standard operation. And then when I married, it was my wife's family, and they became part of that. And so it mushroomed up a little bit. And then anybody that they knew there. And so it was in-laws, it was outlaws, there for Thanksgiving, but also Christmas too. And the joy that came from it was super memorable. To have, especially somebody that was going to be alone. On a special day. It can be a lonely day. And so they were not alone. They were with a sea of humanity. And it was a lot of fun.
Now, obviously we want to make this all a really positive thing. But as a young man, were there times that you're like, like more people? Or like what was the heart of it growing up? Or is it generally a good experience? Living in a home like that.
Speaking as a selfish person, this not all the times. There was those moments, especially initially, like, oh, come on, really? Can't it just be simpler? Do we have to get the leaves out to make the tables bigger? Do we have to put up the card tables? Do we have to get the chairs up from the basement? Do we have to? And so, I'm going to be honest with you. That initial do we have to clean the house? Kinda. It's okay if we don't, but never regretted afterwards, and so I think that's, a mixed emotions to it. Starting off typically, being a selfish person, not great, but ending up, over. I guess either Jesus is a liar, or it's true. It is better to give than receive, and so he always banks up on his promise in that way.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Steve, for being here and sharing that, and traveling to be here with us this morning to share that account and testimony. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Man, I love it. I can relate to that. I was the kid in the family that had to get the leaves out. So when you said getting the leaves out for the table, that struck a chord. Jesus, here's a scripture in Mark chapter 10. Jesus called them together and he said, that the rulers of this world lord it over their people and officials and flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Powerful scripture, and when we read things like this, it evokes something in us. Hopefully it spurs us on, it motivates us. But a lot of times when we talk about Jesus and his mission, we talk about the what of the mission and the why of the mission. So what was it that Jesus did functionally? How did he do it? And why? But the thing about that, and there's a lot of books that are out there that key in on these things, right? And like the church needs to be driven by purpose, and we need to understand the why of what we're doing, and that motivates us. I'm not trying to disagree with any of those things. But there is something that changes when we see and know the who. Like when the who becomes real to us, it just makes things different. Like imagine if you went to the doctor and got some blood work done, and the doctor gives you a call. Says, "Well, here I've got some interesting news for you. We found this element in your blood that's very unique, and this actually, it was discovered, can cure some rare disease. It's rare, but there's still hundreds of thousands of people in this world that have this disease that always leads to death. And if we can just cut off your left arm, we can save 10,000 people." I know this doesn't make any sense. It's not supposed to. Just if that's your scenario, right? Now some might be, you're going to go through the motions. You're going to think about those things, and you're going to think about that number. 10,000 people. I'll have to go around without an arm for the rest of my life, but I could save 10,000 people. And some will be compelled to do it, and others will not. And that's no judgment, but just say the difference between if I then just brought 10 of those people to meet with you in a room, the chances that you would give your left arm for the people that you actually met, when you saw their faces, when you held their hands, when you gave them a hug, when you heard their stories, when you saw pictures of their kids, would go up exponentially. Because it is about what we're doing, what God has called us to do, and it is about why is God wanting us to do this, and why are we doing it? But when we see the people, when we see their situations and put faces to those causes, it changes things for us. And so it is definitely about what Jesus did and why Jesus did it. But it is also about who he did it for. And so when we're moving into this element of hospitality to see that God is an inviter. And we're looking in these stages. So last week we talked about God prepares a place. This week we're looking at God invites us in. And we'll continue this series and kind of look at, he doesn't just invite us in, he serves, and then he also spends time with us. But I want to look at this. Jesus, it's about the who. And there's a number of scriptures in which Jesus is very clear about he knew who he had come to serve. And so here is a story in Matthew chapter 15 of a woman who was not an Israelite, and yet he is talking to her. She asks for him to serve, to heal her. And he says, I was only sent to help God's lost sheep, the people of Israel. Jesus did heal her, but he has this target. Jesus knew he was sent to to save the lost sheep of Israel. Earlier in Matthew, it says when Jesus heard this, he says, healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. For I have come to call not those who think they are righteous, but those who know they are sinners. So Israelites, and not just, but not the Israelites who think they're righteous. So it can hones in. In Matthew 11, such a beautiful, we looked at this verse last week as well. Come to me, he says, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Jesus has a mind. And this makes all the difference in the world when you kind of have this idea of who are you being called to serve. One day as Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, also called Peter, and Andrew, throwing a net into the water, for they fished for a living. Jesus called out to them. He said, come follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people. And they left their nets at once and followed him. So who was it that Jesus was calling? Who was it that Jesus was going after? And this is even a great example because as a rabbi, and the people that he would have called, who a rabbi would have typically called, would not have been the fishermen. It would have been the people that were studying more to become rabbis and that really wanted to be students of the rabbi and walk around with the teacher. And so here's guys that have not done that. They've gone and they're fishing with their father. And Jesus calls them. And so Jesus has this mindset. I'm going to find the lost sheep of Israel. But But the lost sheep, and who does that make up? It's the people that have maybe been overlooked. It's the people that aren't spiritually healthy. It's the people that are carrying heavy burdens. And so when Jesus walks through, it's not that he didn't care about the non-Israelite. He still served those people, saved those people, healed those people. And it's not that he didn't care about the religious elite. He still interacted with those people. He still taught those people. He still had compassion on those people. But he knew who it was that he wanted to go after. And he invited them in. And he invited them not only into his presence, but he also invited them into his mission. He says this in his prayer in John chapter 17. He says, just as you sent me into the world, I'm sending them into the world, when he's talking to his Father about his disciples. And so that is the call. He had a very targeted idea of who he was trying to reach. I believe that will help us in our own ministries if we not just think about the what and the why and the how even, but the who. Is there a who that God has called you to? I've used this Venn diagram a couple of times in life and ministry, and it's borne a lot of fruit. And kind of looking at what are the gifts that God has given you, and how does that intersect with the needs that are in your community? And these things, from year to year, from time to time, are going to change. So what are the needs and opportunities that are in your community? And then where those things meet, what are the things that you just feel a burden about? And not a like a weighty, like a passion kind of burden, like this is what I'm supposed to do, right? And where those three things cross, you'll find opportunity. It doesn't restrict you in that opportunity. It doesn't keep you isolated to that opportunity. But it opens your eyes to seeing those people. So early on in ministry, and after Cassie and I had bought our first house, and we were young, and we just had some interactions, some people that had graduated out of our youth group, but still lived in the area, and then had started going to college, were looking for a spiritual home. And some other people that we were connected to through some kind of part-time work things and volunteer service were in that same age range, and they were looking for a place to do their college Bible study. They said, well, we can host a college Bible study. And so, especially some of the guys that lived in our neighborhood, it was just really interesting to me. One day, the guy, he would walk past our house from the bus stop to go to his church, from the bus stop to go to his house. And he would walk by our house. And every once in a while, he would just stop in. And he would just sit on our couch. And sometimes he would just fall asleep. And we would talk to him, and it was him and his cousin. And they loved to just come over. And we didn't mind it. Like, they were nice guys. And so for us, it just became an opportunity. There was a need. And we talked to them about it. It was just so insightful because it didn't feel like we were doing a lot. But they were like, Rob, it is just so nice to just come to your house and sit on your couch. There's just a peace that is here that we don't have other places in our lives. Okay, we'll come and sit on our couch. So there's things like that happen. Sometimes it doesn't even start, and all of these things don't need to align. It doesn't start when we first moved up, when Cassie first moved to New York. Before she had even made the move, one of the ladies, she was living in Alabama and was going to move to New York, and one of the ladies said, I've got a job for you. Cassie, you've got a job for me? She's like, yeah, we work really closely with this pregnancy center, and there's a woman that's at the pregnancy center, and she's in charge of all of the education stuff, and she's getting married and moving to Maine. And they need somebody to take her spot, but she's just engaged now, so she's like 6 months where they want to bring somebody in, they want to have her train somebody, and they're looking for a really good candidate. And so I said, well, there's this girl that's going to move up, and you'd be perfect for it. I don't know, like we didn't have a passion for pregnancy center ministry, but it was an opportunity, and there was a need there, and Cassie had some gifts that matched that opportunity. So she got involved there. And then in her involvement there, and talking to some of the different people that worked there, they said, you know what? We don't have a lot of men that volunteer for the pregnancy center, but we have an increasing amount of young men that come by with their girlfriends, with their wives, who need these services. So, Rob, could you help out? And I had done some work with counseling, and so I was really interested in that. And so I got to go and do parenting classes and go and sit with young couples and help them. And then when we moved here, one of the first things I had, there was the Roe v. Wade decision happened, and then Paul Hugebart, who was our lead minister, said, I really feel compelled, like that, an answer to this, a knock that the church gets is, you want all these babies to be born, but you're not willing to take care of them. So what if we partner with a local pregnancy center? Okay. And so then those people came to our ministry fair, and I talked to them, and I said, this is something that I've done in the past. And the woman that was standing at that table talking about her ministry almost broke down in tears. She said, we just got back from a conference, and they were talking about all of the opportunities there are for men to serve in the pregnancy centers. And we thought, wouldn't that be nice if we had some male volunteers that could work with some of these young men that came by? And so we've been praying for the last couple of weeks to have some male volunteers to come and volunteer for Whispering Hope. And then I came to the table and I said, well, I've got that experience. I can do that. I wouldn't say that was a burden of mine or even a passion of mine, except when I get in those situations, I love it. And Cassie can tell you how many times I would come home from meeting with some of those young couples, energized, sometimes sad because of the decisions they make and the things that are tough. It's not all kicks and giggles, but you see how these things connect, and you see how that makes sense. See how having a face to what we do makes a difference. That can make a difference in a number of ways. I've heard stories of like factories, and they're like just churning out medical supplies, making medical supplies. So you make it, you're in your assembly line, you're doing whatever you're doing, and that in order to motivate those workers, they will occasionally, once every year, a couple of years, they'll bring in the people who those medical supplies have saved. Those medical supplies have made a difference in their life, and those people will talk and they'll say, the thing you're doing, even though you might not think you're making a big difference, it saved my life. And so putting a face to that. So that's what I want to call you to do today, is following the lead of Jesus. Jesus did not just come. Jesus came to save everybody, but when he came, he had a very particular person in mind who he came to serve. So he served a finite group of people so that he could save the world. And so that's my question for us today is, who's your who? Who is your who? Has God called you to come and be a Christian and just serve everybody? Sometimes we think that. And the truth is, though, when we think we've got to serve everybody, a lot of times we don't serve anyone. And when we think that our gifts are so generic, like let me ask you this. I need $1. Does anybody have $1 they can lend me? Anybody got $1? Nobody? All right, there's a handful, maybe. All right. I think we're not putting ourselves in jeopardy. Nobody's going to rob you after church, I hope. Honestly, who here has $1 bill in your pocket that you could give me? Just raise your hand. Let me see. Because I know cash is not that. All right, now who here has a $100 bill? You don't have to raise your hand. You don't have to raise your hand. This might get sketchy. No, but here's the thing. So if I ask for $1, that's a small ask, but there's a lot of people that have it, and so there's a lot of you who may have had $1. You might think, well, I'm way out here in the balcony. Rob can get help from somebody who's closer to him, right? Or there's a bunch of other people that have $1. Anyone else could help this man. If I said, I need a $100 bill right now, and you've got a $100 bill in your pocket or your wallet or your purse, then you probably know you're in the lower percentage, because a lot of people don't carry cash. And a lot of people don't just have $100 bills in their wallets. So if I'm like, I really need this right now, might be like, well, tough nuggets, but you might feel compelled to help. But the more specific that request is, if you meet that need, the more the more apt you are to reply. And so that's what happens when we're talking about hospitality. Who did Jesus invite in? Jesus came with a target. Who am I going to call? Who am I going to invite? And so the closer we can get to that and understanding that in our lives, the more apt we are to say yes. Who is it that God, because of your life's experiences, because of the things that you really care about, because of the needs that you care about and are on your radar, who is God calling you to invite in? And so that's what I want you to do this week, is take some time to just pray about it and ask God, who do you want me to invite in? Make a list. Start making a list, because here's what we're going to do. And then I've got this. If you didn't get one on your way in, on the way out, you can get a little key. You got these fancy little fun keys. Grab one of these keys, throw it in your pocket for the next couple weeks. So when you put your hand, put your hand in your pocket and you feel that key, you hold that key, and just remember, God has called you not just to a thing, to a mission, but to a people, to a person. There's somebody out there that God wants you to help and serve and invite in. And so, we're doing this 21 days of prayer and fasting and hospitality. And so a lot of times we'll start the year asking everybody to let's fast for 21 days. And that's not eating for 21 days. That's making a commitment once a week or several times in a week to skip a meal or to skip a couple meals and give that time to prayer. Right? We've done that really well the last several years here. And we did that last week. Hopefully a lot of people participated in that this past week. And you can keep going. Not trying to discourage you, just fast on Tuesday and have people over on Wednesday. But this Wednesday, to kind of get the year kick-started, we're doing this potluck meal. All right, so I want to encourage you. The thing says 5:30 on here. We're going to try to start eating a little after 6. Come. Join in the fellowship. And you're like, well, I can't get there till 6:15. Come at 6:15. People will still be here. People will still be eating. Well, I won't have enough time to bring a food. Don't worry about it. There'll be food. People will bring food. There'll be enough food. And don't just come. Bring somebody. We want this to be crazy. And here's the thing. Spend some time talking to people about it, and there's numerous times in the conversations where things got a little stressful. Oh, what are we going to do with this? How are we going to handle this? How are we going to handle this? And it's talking to Madonna Crowder, and she's like, Rob, it's a potluck. Like, tell me. It's like, that just means it's like the luck of the pot. Right? So, like, people bring stuff and you eat it. So she's kind of like, calm down, man. I was like, all right, you're right. So I kind of walked off the ledge, and that's my new position, is like, just come. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be fun. Stop making excuses. Just be here. All right, got that away. So then here's the thing. So that's just 14 days in, though. So then next week, what we want you to do, you're going to start with this list. Next week, you're going to invite somebody to your house, or you're going to invite somebody out, or somebody's going to invite you over, and you're going to say yes. Because hospitality doesn't just have to be in your home. It's about making people feel comfortable. It's making people feel welcome. And so you're going to make some effort next week. This week, you're going to come on Wednesday to the potluck. Next week, you're going to do some act of hospitality. Right? So you've got the lead time. That is our 21-day campaign to start the year. We really want to kick this thing off. Right? So God has prepared a way for us, and God has invited us into his presence and into his mission. And so we can learn from that. We want to be people that prepare spaces, prepare our hearts, that we've been preparing our hearts to be hospitable people. And then who is it that God's calling you to invite in? Consider those things, pray about those things. We're going to stand together now. We're going to get back into a little bit of worship and close out our worship service.